Welcome back to Home Gym Hacks and Reviews. This is part 2 in my Ironmaster Super Bench Pro attachment series. Today I'll be going over the pull-up attachment, the hybrid bench pad, the hypercore attachment, the cable tower seat, as well as the preacher curl attachment. Stay tuned. In part 1, I reviewed the leg extension, leg curl, dip, and sit-up attachments, and also the organizer. Here's the chin-up attachment for the Super Bench Pro. Here's what the chin-up attachment looks like inside of the box. Like the dip attachment, the only tool that is required is an Allen wrench, which is included. Here is the finished product, which took about 1 minute to put together. With the Super Bench Pro set at a slight incline, the pull-up attachment is really easy to connect because it weighs less than 20 pounds. The pull-up attachment has a 300-pound weight capacity. The bars are 48 inches wide. The neoprene grips are a nice addition, and they're 1 1/4 inch diameter. The bar can be adjusted into 7 different positions in 2-inch increments. Some people may not like the neoprene grips that are on a lot of these attachments, but the ultimate chin-up attachment for the IM2000 is knurled. I'm 5'9". Here's the pull-up in its highest setting, so I would have to jump to get onto there. And if I move the attachment into its lowest setting, it would be perfect for someone who's shorter or even kids. When I measure the height of the pull-up attachment, it ranges from 76.5 inches to 88.5 inches, which differs slightly from Ironmaster's website. The pull-up attachment is really easy to adjust. Just loosen the twist knob and pull out the pin, and then move the bar to your desired height. Tighten this pin back for added stability, and take advantage of all of the different grips this attachment has to offer, including hammer, narrow, slightly wider than shoulder width, and wide. And I do feel the entire unit flexing on me a little bit. However, I'm not worried about the stability of it at all. Here's a different angle to show the amount of space you have between your body and the bench. So, plenty of clearance. I have my band around the frame of the machine if I want to do banded pull-ups. And if I need a little assistance with my pull-ups, I can hang the band around the top. As long as the plates don't start swinging and hit this piece right here, the pull-up attachment sits far enough away from the bench to do weighted pull-ups. The attachment works great for ab work. This pull-up attachment is a really good option for anyone who doesn't have a rack with a pull-up bar attached, and there are plenty of people who just don't want a rack or a Smith machine or anything like that, and they just want this setup right here. I also think this is a much better option than using one of those pull-up attachments that goes into a door frame, and it keeps you from having to bolt a pull-up bar onto the wall. Here's the hybrid bench pad. Here's the pad inside of the box. I really like that Ironmaster includes these plates because I'll put them on my various pieces of Ironmaster equipment. Here's a close-up of the hybrid bench pad. And now it's time to swap pads, and to do that, I just need to remove 8 bolts from the Super Bench Pro. Here's a close-up of the 2 pads. The hybrid pad is textured with a higher grip vinyl. The pad is slightly more dense and without a logo because some users prefer not to have the feedback of the logo touching their back when performing supine exercises. When I measure these pads, I get slightly different measurements than what's on Ironmaster's website. Both are 44 inches long, 2 inches thick, and 10 3/8 inch wide at their most narrow point. However, the hybrid pad is 12 1/4 inches at its most wide point. The pad can be installed on the bench frame either way. Ironmaster recommends having the wider end closer to the foot lever. However, I think I'm going to try to swap that. So for example, when I'm doing leg extensions, the wider end will be under my thighs. Here's the hybrid pad installed on the bench. I may end up swapping the orientation of the pad because it does feel a little bit odd to have the narrow end at the bottom when doing incline exercises. So what's the purpose of the hybrid pad? Well, Ironmaster listens to their customers, and many wanted a more grippy vinyl without the logo. Also, many wanted a wider pad for more support when doing pressing exercises. However, the bench can be simply turned around, and if you want a greater range of motion when doing dumbbell work, for example, you can use the more narrow end. So basically, Ironmaster gives you the best of both worlds in one pad. Here's the more narrow end. And now the wider end. I like having the wide end of the hybrid pad on this end when I'm doing leg extensions, and I like the wider end of the pad behind my shoulders when I'm doing flat presses on the IM2000. I like the narrow end behind my shoulders when doing flat dumbbell work. I'll probably leave the hybrid pad bolted on in its present orientation. However, when doing incline work, I do think I would like the wider end down low and the more narrow end up high. But for leg extensions, this orientation works better. In my review for the Ironmaster leg curl leg extension attachment, I mentioned how I missed having a back support when doing leg extensions. Well, if you pull the bench into the IM2000 and lower the bar, it actually serves as a very good back support. And just to make the exercise more comfortable, I did add a squat pad onto the bar. If you get the hybrid bench pad, don't throw this one out in the bushes. Reuse it. It works perfectly for floor work when you're doing pull downs or seated rows on the IM2000. Here's the HyperCore attachment. It arrived in excellent condition. Here's what the HyperCore looks like inside of the box. An excellent packing job to ensure that nothing gets damaged during shipping. Here's the HyperCore outside of the box. Here's the tube that the roller pads go on. It is reinforced. The end caps bolt on, and these pads are pretty squishy. The directions are very easy to follow, and the first step is connecting the thigh pads with those bolts to the handle frame. After connecting the posts to the handles, you then put on the foot holder frame. So this is what the configuration looks like for anyone who's trying to assemble it. The HyperCore attachment stores nicely along the wall when not connected into the bench. The HyperCore attachment only weighs about 30 pounds, so it's pretty easy to connect and disconnect. However, there is one thing that I need to mention if you have the Superbench Pro. If you have the Cable Tower Seat or the original Superbench, this isn't an issue. But if you do have the Superbench Pro, when you connect this attachment into the bench, the feet on the HyperCore attachment don't touch the ground. So what you have to do is put the bench in a position that's between the first and second notch, and now the feet will hit the ground. And this doesn't affect the stability. It's just the way the attachment has to be used with this bench. As easy as it is to connect the HyperCore to the Superbench Pro, I also wanted to get the seat for the cable tower, which can also be used to connect the HyperCore, just so that the HyperCore is a standalone piece. Here's how the seat for the cable tower comes boxed. Here is what the cable tower seat looks like outside of the box. Not a lot of pieces. The seat already comes connected to the frame, and this pad is very good quality. It feels very heavy duty, and it's pretty dense. Here's what the HyperCore looks like connected to the cable tower seat. When connected, these two pieces do feel very secure. The hip pads are not as dense or as tacky as the seat pad. The HyperCore attachment can be connected to the Superbench or the Superbench Pro, but I wanted a standalone back extension in this room, so I got the cable tower seat, which is of course also used for the cable tower attachment. The HyperCore attachment has a 300-pound weight capacity. These pads are not very dense and they're not the most durable material, but they are comfortable, and the split design is appreciated. The neoprene grips are a nice addition. The foot pegs can be adjusted into 12 different settings. The end caps bolt on. I would like to see a vinyl or leather covering over these foam rollers. And when connected to the cable tower seat, it's 40 inches tall, 23 inches wide, and 48 inches long, which gives it a smaller footprint than if it's connected to the Superbench or the Superbench Pro. I wasn't sure how it was going to feel to have my feet on pegs, because with all of my other back extension benches, I have a foot plate, but it actually feels pretty good and pretty secure. There's no problem adding a band around the frame of the bench for banded hip extensions. For those of you who like reverse hypers, the cable tower seat makes this exercise a little bit easier, and because it's 40 inches high, it actually works very well. These pegs are a great place to hold on to for the reverse hyper, and I'm someone who actually likes this exercise, and I feel that it has benefited me. When connected to the Superbench, this doesn't work as well because the bench gets in the way, but with the cable tower seat, a banded reverse hyper works well. And I can take advantage of the IM2000's pulley system to add some resistance to this exercise. The HyperCore can also work as a standing preacher station. The HyperCore attachment can also be used with a pulley system for preacher curls. The attachment also works as a great place to do arm-supported tricep extensions. I have never used this style bench for ab or oblique work, but if you are limited on equipment, it is an option. I just don't think this is optimal, at least not for me. And then for the oblique exercise, these pegs that you put your feet on are not wide enough for me to feel like I'm very stable. I plan to keep the hypercore attachment tucked away here in this corner. This back extension is a 45-degree angle when connected into the cable tower seat, but when connected to the Super Bench Pro, it's 41 degrees. I wanted to bring in my Titan hyperextension bench to show the difference in height between these two. The Titan is raised into its highest position at 35 inches, and the Ironmaster is 40 inches. I like the hypercore attachment for 45-degree hip extensions and back extensions. I probably won't use it for ab work or oblique work, and some of my standalone back extension benches function a little bit better than this one, as you would imagine. However, for the space that this takes up, and if you already have the Super Bench or the Super Bench Pro, this is a really good buy and a good bet at $259. Here's the preacher curl attachment. Here's how it comes boxed. Outside of the box, the attachment consists of two pieces and the hardware pack. The pad is 24 inches by 12 inches, 3 inches thick. It's moderately grippy and fairly dense. It's going to be easiest to assemble with the pad facing down. When the preacher attachment is connected into the Super Bench Pro and the Super Bench is in the flat position, it's 34 inches high and the pad only weighs about 20 pounds. The preacher is easy to get in and out of the bench, but because it's top heavy, this is the easiest way that I've found to connect it. By hooking my fingers under the front of it, holding onto the piece that connects into the bench, pull out your pin. There will be some wobble until you tighten this knob. Then after that, it's tight. You will see some wobble here, but that's because this is adjustable into 3 different positions. Here is the pad's first position. It's a great place for standing wrist curls. The next position, still a little bit sharp for me. Kind of puts my elbows in a compromised position. But the last setting is the one that I like best, and the one that comes in at 42.8 degrees, and this is the one that I find most comfortable. The attachment works as a great station for dumbbell work, and the hook on the front is big enough to put a single dumbbell on, and the pad is big enough for double dumbbell work. And here's a different angle, just so you can see what a couple of arms looks like on here. The only real complaint that I've ever heard about this attachment is that it's difficult to load an easy curl bar on here. Because those hooks are only 4.5 inches apart, it's probably best to load the barbell and then put it on those hooks. The hooks are rated at 120 pounds, and it would be nice if there was some type of covering so there wasn't metal on metal. Also, if you load this really heavy, the back end of the bench might start to tip, so you may need to put 45s on the back end of the bench. But here's what it looks like getting the bar off and into position. Because the hooks sit kind of back, you will need to grab, sit back, and then perform your curl. Then when you're done, you kind of got to sit up and lean forward in order to rack the bar. I'm most excited about using the preacher curl attachment with the cable system on the IM2000. Those hooks serve as a good place to put your attachment while you get into position. The pad is comfortable and the angle feels good for preacher cable curls. Like the hypercore attachment, when the preacher pad is connected into the bench and the bench is at a slight incline, this works great for arm-supported tricep extensions. I really like the preacher curl attachment, especially for dumbbell work and cable work. And if you already have the Super Bench or the Super Bench Pro, it's a really inexpensive option to buying a standalone preacher curl bench. In part 1, I mentioned how I would like for these foam rollers to have a vinyl or leather covering. Luckily, Ironmaster does sell those add-ons. Here's what they look like outside of the package. It's a pretty tight fit, which is a good thing. I just ended up taking the roller pads off to make getting these covers on a little bit easier. And then you got to pull these strings super tight so that it will form to the roller pad a little bit better. A nice and easy, inexpensive upgrade for less than $20. And here's the finished product. A nice upgrade. In part 1, I kind of brushed over this organizer, but this is one of the true heroes in this room. I am a huge fan of being organized, and I do not perform well in an area where there is a lack of organization. So this piece is pretty awesome to me, and I love how it basically holds anything and everything that I could want it to hold. Ultimately, I'm very happy with all of the attachments for the Ironmaster Super Bench Pro. I think most people would be very happy with the quality as well as price for each one of these attachments, and they're obviously much cheaper and take up a lot less space than if you were to have any one of these pieces as a standalone commercial grade piece of equipment. I think all of these attachments are fairly priced, and luckily Ironmaster does offer free shipping. The pull-up attachment is $109. The hybrid bench pad is $89.99. The hypercore attachment is $259, so that's the most expensive of all the attachments that I covered today. And then the cable tower seat is an additional $139. So if you want this setup that I have over here, that's basically going to run you $400. And for some people that might be a bit steep, but for me in this room and just to save time and so I don't have to keep swapping out the HyperCore attachment into the Superbench Pro, this was the best option for me. And then the Preacher Curl attachment is $129. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I want to let you know that I sincerely appreciate everyone who watches, likes, and comments on these videos, as it does help to increase the reach of my channel. If you found anything in this video helpful, please consider liking it. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider doing so. I'm on Instagram at Home Gym Hacks and Reviews, and I'm also an Ironmaster affiliate. So if you make an Ironmaster purchase, please consider using my affiliate link, as it does help to support this channel. And in my next video, I'll be going over some of the attachments for the IM2000, including the PEC Fly. Take care, everyone.